Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
And we are back here on Go Astros. It's been 2 weeks. Andy's here wearing a lovely blue polo. Brian's here in a Space City t-shirt. Brian, that t-shirt is a...
It's my birthday gift for my 9-year-old, and hey, it's Space City Monday. The Astros are back at home, so cheers.
Oh, so we're gonna lose tonight?
Losing a pair of pajamas. Oh boy, that uniform's problematic when the pants are all the way down. And I'm wearing my it's an Altoona Curve D-Day jersey. Today is the 78th anniversary of the greatest invasion in modern military history, and kind of a cool story because I saw at the winter meetings. Was touring the Wilson, trying to find the logo, the Wilson booth, and just was into the jersey. You guys know I like jerseys that are alternative and rare. And the lady was so nice. She, lady from Wilson, probably could have gotten in trouble, but she found Jessica on the floor, got the address, and a couple weeks later, this showed up. So this was pretty neat. And I'm actually glad it happened. And we don't usually talk about specific Longhorn baseball or college baseball, on the show, but I think just something really awesome happened last night. I don't know if y'all saw it, but I wanted to share it with you. But, you see it more in football games, but they always make a big deal, and I love to make a big deal about when a team plays a service academy, because clearly these are guys that her minds are on something more important than the sport they're playing at that time. And I thought it was super cool that two things happened last night. They were doing... I don't know if the PA was announcing it or if people were just somehow dialed in, but every time a Air Force pitcher that was a senior left the mound, there was a big ovation from the crowd. At the end of the game, they were chanting USA, USA. The horns and Air Force guys shook hands, which you never see outside of like high school baseball anymore. And then the Air Force guys stood and sang The Eyes of Texas with the horns. It was a beautiful moment where, baseball was secondary. And I think something that we need in this time of college stadiums yelling, let's go Brandon, right? It's the opposite thing. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys, share that with the audience. I thought that was a special moment.
James, Texas is your team. A&M is Andy's team. Both advanced to the Super Regionals. Congratulations. LSU's my team. But the thing about the service academies is they're all our team, regardless of our loyalties in every other way. And, part of what to me is great about watching the service academy in any sport is realizing that these people have made a commitment beyond just playing sports, and they have goals beyond that. And they have great admiration for me for that.
Yeah, I know like they said 8 of the 9 seniors were going to go be fighter pilots. One of them was going to be a doctor. I do remember being in Bosnia and they would come out, and for Army Navy game, they would record us yelling, go Army. But I rooted for Navy as a kid. So it was very weird for me to and I didn't really like Army officers at the time as an enlisted man, soon to be NCO. So it was very complicated. What's not been complicated, Andy, has been the run the Astros have been on. And I want to start with you because this is one of those hard to pin down things that you and I sort of specialize in. And then Brian comes in with numbers. We had a conversation on Messenger, maybe it was yesterday, about the Astros are winning games. Last year, they easily would have lost. They are not. Last year, they didn't beat teams with losing records. This year, they are. And as a result, we're staring at, I think, a 5-game improvement over this point last year and an 8.5-game lead in the standings. And now we can talk about standings because it's after Memorial Day.
I mean, there are only 2 teams that have an 8.5-game lead in their division. Both of them originated in the early 60s as expansion franchises.
Played in 86.
Yeah, the Astros have been very, very interesting, and their run, which is not, it's beyond just a run. It's not like it's an 11-game losing streak or anything like that, is predicated on really, really good pitching up and down both the rotation and the bullpen, and then the second emergence was what I'll call of Yordan Alvarez. We always talk about adjustments that are made by players at every level. And when you get to Major League Baseball, you can come up and have immediate success, but the league will adjust to you. And then it's your job to adjust back. And if you want to have a long career, you're constantly adjusting because the league is constantly adjusting to you. Jordan Alvarez has taken that next level adjustment. And he's hitting balls to all field. He's hitting with power. He's not getting fooled a lot anymore. And he's leading the Astros in every other offensive category. And I'm sure I'm missing a couple guys, but nobody else is really terribly consistent right now in our lineup day to day. So he's the guy that's driving, and he was this way his rookie year. He's still the guy that I will stop what I'm doing, because usually a baseball game's on, but I might be folding laundry or messing with a dog or something. I will stop what I'm doing to watch his at bats, because you're going to see something special 4 out of 10 times. He's just that good a hitter with that much raw power.
I think the actually shining moment for me was I guess it was a single or double that he hit against the A's in an 0-2 count. I mean, like, that's the thing, is he's hitting in counts you're not supposed to hit in. Brian, Andy touched on something about the pitching, and all three of us had said going into this season that it's going to be a little bit different Astros team this year because the pitching is the strength. It seems like, the old adage, right? Defense win championships in football. I mean, is that what we're seeing? And is that what we can maybe count on going forward?
Yeah, we're watching a pitching and defense first team that, has some good offensive players. And I think there's reason to think the offense will come around. But, the reason this team is off to an 8.5 game lead in the American League West, the reason they're playing so well is because they're able to stop the other team from scoring runs. Two things are different about the pitching staff this year than last year. One is they significantly cut down on the number of walks.
Mm-hmm.
They were mid to sometimes being, over the season last year, they were in the back half of the league in walks. This year, they're top 10 in the fewest number of walks, and that makes a big difference. If you win, makes a big difference. And then secondly, the bullpen is stronger and deeper. Rafael Montero has seemingly come out of nowhere, and Hector Neris has been everything you would have asked for the money they paid for him, and they clearly made a good decision in identifying him, and that's been an excellent part of it. Brian Abreu, one of the struggles of the Astros has been developing young relievers. It's sort of the one area where they haven't developed a good young player. We've had a bunch of these guys come through. Abreu really seems to be leveling up as a reliever, and that's been really nice to see. I think the other thing to point out is in the starting rotation, particularly in Framber Valdez and Christian Javier, we're seeing two traditionally what we sort of identified as young players become young veterans, people who are much more mature in their approach to the game and who are consistent. Is always a weird word to me, but sort of they're able to, Framber is walking a lot fewer guys. He's a big reason why and if Framber keeps it in the strike zone, it's really hard to hit him.
It's funny because Javier, I think, has been consistent his whole career, right? Like, he was like second or third in the Rookie of the Year voting. But Andy, like, we always waited for the other shoe to drop with Framber, and beginning, I guess, in 19, and we had a little bit of a regression last year. Maybe it was beginning in 20 and a bit of a regression last year, but this year it's not nearly that way. Innings that would have completely derailed that kid aren't derailing him anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's just maturity, which is, again, one of those adjustments you make in a career. You could pretty much tell Framber would go fine. He walked a lot of guys really early in his career, but you could always tell the second anything went wrong behind him, and anything wrong could be the wind blew the wrong way. Bregman didn't field the ball cleanly. There was a runner standing on second tying his. Anything to distract Framber would have distracted Framber. And if it was bad, it would snowball from there. And that was the rap on him. If you could get base runners, he's gonna implode. He stopped doing that a while ago. He had a little bit of a step back last year when the league cracked down on some substances that may or may not, whatever. But there were a lot of pitchers that had to make adjustments mid-season last year, and he was one of those. But he got better towards the end of the year, and this year he has continued to take that next step. He is still, like you said, a relatively young guy who is pitching really, really well. And I think one of our things we have said on this show over and over is that without Justin Verlander, this is a team that has a bunch of 2 and 3 starters. Fromber's making that case that maybe he's on that higher end of a 2, if not an ace in some circumstances, because he's going to give you 6 innings consistently. He's won 5 games in a row. He doesn't get flustered anymore, and he can get guys out even when he does allow the base runners, because he gets those ground balls at a ridiculous rate. I think like 10 points higher than anybody else. Brandon Webb, I think, is second. But he's like 68% ground ball outs, which is incredible. And that means you have to have a good defense behind you, what the Astros do in the infield, so that it works for him.
Yeah, you're talking about the confidence that I have in Fromber. If I'm looking at the 7 guys that'll be available to pitch, we hope, and they're all healthy and at the top of their skill set, I probably slated JV in Fromber and then maybe McCullers, Garcia. I think we will get to Urquidy in a minute in this episode, because I think we can now start to have those conversations as well. But yeah, it's been it's been fun to see the change, and it's fun to see the development. I want to get to a little bit.
Just real quick. The other part with Fromber is that it is certainly fun to watch vintage Verlander strike guys out, but watching Fromber fool people with curveballs it's great entertainment, because he doesn't get the recognition nationally that he probably should, but he makes people pull out the sword, so to speak, more than just about any pitcher in baseball right now.
Well, and part of the entertainment is the hitter looking like, how did he throw that?
Yeah. I'm not even mad. I'm just impressed. I want to get to some controversy yesterday. Presley thrown out of the game. We had a bit of a debate on our text chain about whether it was intentional. Brian pointed out some evidence that maybe it was. I saw more evidence today that maybe it was an intentional thing, which makes it baffling that it would be. And I'm not sure why Maton speaks to people. It's almost like Chandler Owen finally did a pretty good job of being a reporter. But I think the question is in what the explanation was, is the umpires felt like it was intentional and they had to put a stop to it. At the end of the day, I still put the fault of that whole drama on the umpires, because the first warning should have gone up after the second Astro. I mean, when they're like 4 hit batsmen in the series, like it was a problem. And I think warning a guy on a backdoor slider at his feet seems a little unnecessary with 1 out to go in the game. Brian, I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah. Maton's comments, indicated there was probably some discussion in the bullpen that, hey, they're hitting too many of our guys and maybe you ought to do something about it. People have said it was 2 outs in the bottom in the 9th, so you wouldn't do it. But actually, that's the time you do it, because it's a 4-run lead. Putting a guy on first changes the game. Look, was he not? I don't know. The biggest sort of criticism, I think the worst thing was done, is the game management done by the umpires in the game yesterday. That, you've got a guy who's hot and not happy with you, and, one of them could have gone, and look, some of this is procedure. They now have to come together and have the discussion on intent. That was done right in front of Presley and certainly wasn't helpful in the situation, but, it would have been nice.
A guy put hands on Presley too, which I thought was.
Yeah. Hey, not the crew chief and not the home plate umpire, but one of the other umpires could have gone to Presley and said, look, I know you didn't throw at him. You know you didn't throw at him. He doesn't have to believe that or not. Hey, but we just got to fill out our TPS reports with the league. And you know how Manfred is, right? He's on you guys just as much. He's on us just as much as you guys. So just go strike this guy out. We'll all go home and we'll forget this ever happened. Okay. And that's one thing you can do. And then 2, once he got ejected, right, none of the other umpires sort of went to try to handle Ryan Presley in a way of saying, hey, calm down. Like they, and instead, hey, what Ryan Presley said in his postgame comments is that Vic Carapazzo was sort of implying he was intentionally throwing at the guy. He was not doing anything to, it's a home plate umpire, was not doing anything to calm the situation down. Should Presley act like that? No, right? Because none of us should, right? But, you understand why Presley was mad. You understand the implication,
Well, I tell you what, too, Andy.
Poor job of game management by the umpires.
Absolutely. Before we get to you, Andy, I do want to bring in, Phil Maton, I'm convinced might be Michael Myers. So he's the last person I want going, we need to get after some people. But anyway, Andy, just like overall, what was your take of it? We both watched it live.
Watching it live, I think the reason that there was no intervention by any umpires is because Carapazza escalated it immediately. There was no slow down, I'm going to come talk to you. He was screaming at Presley from behind the plate. I don't know where Matan says that it was intentional, or Matan says that we had, a duty to protect Yordan Alvarez, who was hit, I think, intentionally in the hip with a fastball.
I mean, a double away from the cycle. I mean, that was a little too, it was too convenient to be convenient.
Pulling Yordan to first base is a victory for the Royals pitching staff.
It's
Sure.
true.
Absolutely. Especially since he wanted that double and probably would have put a ball through a fence to get it. But it just, the whole situation was weird. If you're watching it live and don't know anything else, there's no reason Ryan Presley in that situation throws a slider at somebody's thigh, kind of. Actually, it was a little bit higher than that. It was like inside under the sleeve to hit a guy. If you're going to hit a guy, you throw a fastball and you throw it where they're going to back into it. That's really what you're trying to do. So all that context didn't make sense watching it live. I still can't believe anybody would have beef with the Royals, or the Royals would have beef with anybody. They know they're horrible. Outside of Bobby Witt Jr., they know they're not good. There's nobody on that team that believes that, we're going to turn it around. We're just hoping we're getting traded. That's everybody on that team. Benintendi goes out and busts his ass every game because he hopes he's going to be on another team come playoffs. That's his role. And that's the Royals' role in baseball, frankly. They're a team that kind of drafts well, maybe develops people, and then gets crappy players back for trading those. It's just a whole thing that goes on forever. But anyway, Brian's right.
The Royals are also a victim of a crappy financial system in the game. I think they're a team that does do a lot of tanking, but they at least do try to win. Anyway, just
I don't disagree that the Royals have some circumstantial issues, but they're not good at what they do.
No.
Because if they were, they would be more. The Pirates aren't good at what they do either. It's not tanking when you can't ever build back up, and neither of those teams can ever build back up. It's the Rangers who deny that they're tanking, and they're tanking. This is a whole different topic.
Right.
Anyway,
the Royals did win a World Series 6 years ago. So.
Yeah. The umpires did not have control. They escalated. They allowed Carapazza to escalate way too quickly at Presley. Maldonado tried to intervene, but it should have been left up to Maldonado to intervene. And I don't agree that Presley necessarily escalated. He escalated quickly, but I don't think he escalated too quickly, because he simply just asked the question, "What did I do?" And it went from there. And he got pissed, and he got. I think it's a silly situation.
But to Brian's point, it felt like Maldonado was pushing Presley away. Yep. And the umpires were still barking at him. Like, I don't know what was going on, Brian.
That was Carapazza. He kept going after him. And I don't understand the animosity between Presley and Carapazza. I don't care about the animosity between Michael A. Taylor and Ryan Presley, because there is none.
Brian, did you want to add a final word on that?
One interesting point that I think so the first pitch that Presley threw to Taylor was inside. And watching the replay on this, there was a conversation between Taylor and Carapazza. And I'm curious, and I didn't see anything in the postgame, I don't know if you guys did, on what happened in that conversation and was it initiated. I looked to see if anyone had talked to Michael Taylor after the game last night. I didn't see anything from any of the Royals reporters. Did he lobby for that, or was Carapazza, suggesting to him this is something to worry about? I don't know what that conversation was. I'm intrigued by that detail.
Well, it's interesting, because I actually tried to do some research to figure out if there was a sequence. And if you go to MLB's website and do their pitch tracker, they're all over the map. According to them, Presley never threw a pitch. They were all from Matan. The first ball was way inside. The second one was at his feet. The third ball was inside. That's evidently the one that Presley got ejected on, but it was a 2-0 count. So I don't really know what happened based on MLB's actual record keeping.
Well, and I do think we saw the negative effect of that when Phil came in, because he looked afraid to then pitch inside. And if you can't let guys pitch inside, they're going to die. But we're going to move on to a couple of things. Well, so again, it is now June the 6th. We can now start to look at trends. We can start to make some assessments. And I want to start with Brian on the first one. We're going to talk about one good, two questionable. Jeremy Pena. I mean, at some point, to Andy's point earlier about Jordan, it seems like there's a little brief run where pitchers adjust to him and then he adjusts back. I mean, can we be safe to say that this is what we can expect? The Rookie of the Year candidate playing shortstop?
I mean, so it's a third of the season. And I was looking at his numbers today because this is the end of the, I do this on my website, my Substack later today. I'll send out an article about the second six of the season. Jeremy Pena was basically as good in the first six as he was in the second six. And sort of that consistency gives you confidence that it wasn't just a big run that he had just, he got hot for a week and that's propping up his numbers. And he's done better at controlling the strikes. And it does take a lot of walks, but his strikeout rate.
He did take a hit by pitch yesterday, but I'm not going back into that because sorry.
Just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Sure.
And of course, too, I think it's worth noting is the Astros last year were one of the handful of best defensive teams in the major leagues. They lost their single best defensive player. If you look at the numbers this year in 2022, they are among the the handful of best, and I would argue the best defensive team in the majors. And a big reason for that is they're, I think, frankly, just as good at shortstop on defense with Pena as they were with Correa. And so that's been a big asset to the team. He leads the team in Baseball Reference WAR. I don't necessarily know that he'll finish the season that way, but this is a much better player than I think. I was the optimist of the three of us on Jeremy Pena, and I said he'd be an average player.
And it was certainly a gradient. There was Brian and then you, and then I'm over here going, can we trade for Trevor Story? Which I fully admit would have been a colossal mistake.
I mean, has Trevor Story gotten a hit since we left Boston?
I don't know. We do say, we help Salvador Perez, we help Trevor Story. We're just givers.
It's part of, the diversity of our city. We welcome everybody and want them to succeed.
We really do.
Like Salvador Perez, even though it means stop pitching to you, I'm going to keep pitching to you because I know you're going to hit it. And that just makes everybody happy.
My fantasy team says thank you.
Yeah, right. Andy, we'll go to you on the next one. Now we got to talk about two people that I think are question marks, and and for this first one, I'm obviously I'm not advocating that we DFA anybody. I'm not advocating that any of that stuff happened, but Yuli has struggled. He had a bit of a run, but he is struggling. He is no longer, remember last year, he was the guy you wanted up with runners on base. Again, do you think this is just now is age catching up to him, and do the Astros need to start looking at a first base option at the trade deadline?
Well, internally, the first base option is Taylor Jones, and he's started a rehab assignment last week. So there's another option there. I don't know that he's certainly not better defensively. Probably doesn't hit as well as Yuli. I have two minds of this. Yes, age is going to be a factor because Father Time is undefeated. But on the other side, Yuli won a batting title last year, and it wasn't an accident that he won a batting title last year. His issue seems to be, and he got in this, I want to say the 2020 abbreviated season, he stopped taking walks and put a lot of pressure on himself to hit the ball. When you're not getting on base at all, you're going to start swinging for the fences, and he's kind of in that weird mode of, I'm going to swing at everything. And before, it has been as simple as, and I joke about it, Carlos Beltran telling him to, hey, put both eyes on the ball. Oh, okay, and now I can hit again. So I think there's probably still a point where we can rely on Yuli to get better, because I don't think it's injury based. I don't think anybody de-ages or de-skills that quickly. But yeah, from a 2023, 2024 perspective, he's not your guy. So if you had Josh Bell fell into your lap today, I think you have to make that deal, even though it'd be wildly unpopular amongst the Cubans in the Astros organization, of which there are many.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't think at any point we suggest DFAing Yuli. I think if you decide to make an upgrade, Yuli stays on the team. I mean, I think that's clear. Brian, follow up to that.
Yeah, I think the first thing to note is with the 8.5 game lead in the division, with the pitching going well, you have some rope to give Yuli basically 2 months of a chance to straighten himself out before you have to make a decision on who's going to be the starting first baseman in the playoffs. The argument that Yuli will bounce back is that his BABIP is unsustainably low. It's at 250.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little high last season. It was then 330. So, you expected some regression, but it shouldn't be that low. The argument that, this is a bigger change is Yuli, as Andy pointed, his walk rate's down and his strikeout rate is not high compared to most players, but it's high compared to Yuli's. I think it's his career high so far. And so, those skills need to improve over, that's something a batter can control or has some control over. And so again, 2 months on it. There's a number of candidates to be traded at first base. Andy mentioned Josh Bell, Trey Mancini and Christian Walker would be another couple that I think would be on the market. So it's a place where you can find someone for relatively, I think, a value. You wouldn't have to give up a ton for an improvement at first base, but hey, the best thing would be to improve at first base by the guy you already have and improve now. So again, 2 months and a lot of rope to see what happens with Yuli.
Before we jump to the next player, how much does the fact that we have to acknowledge that the Astros offense is inconsistent at best, and first base might be the easiest place to improve of the three spots that seem to be relatively underperforming? You go first.
Oh,
sorry. I usually moderate and I wasn't moderating.
You talk about the other two spots, which I assume you're talking about catcher and center field from the everyday lineup. The Astros are not going to divest themselves of Martin Maldonado.
Right.
He's not going anywhere, and he's going to play forever 5 days. Your best bet is to upgrade or get a replacement for Jason Castro on the roster. I don't know what there is out on the market that you're going to get, knowing that he's only going to play, that whoever you get is going to play 1 day a week, that it's going to make that big an impact on the Astros. The Astros organizationally love Martin Maldonado. The pitching staff loves Martin Maldonado.
Sure.
He's not going anywhere this year. And honestly, even if he's batting 150 at the end of this year, it wouldn't surprise me if they sign him again. They value his leadership that much in that clubhouse and value his defensive skills that much.
Well, yeah, Martin Maldonado has a vesting option, which he is on track to vest.
Yeah. So
right. Yeah, and I think
Martin Maldonado's there.
And I think it's disingenuous to talk about the pitching staff and leave out Martin Maldonado, right? Like
he's one of the normal targets, right? He didn't bats 150. He's horrible. Center field's, the other place that I think it would be worthy of a talk to upgrade from an offensive perspective, without giving up defense. That limits your candidate pool a little bit. There aren't just that many great center fielders. We're not in the days of Mays, Mantle, and Duke Snyder. So first base is the logical place when you're talking about an everyday player. And I'm not ready. And I have been on the trade Yuli train before, not DFA, but let's see what we can get for him. And he's proven me wrong every time. And, much to Jess's chagrin, I apologize to her every time. But that seems to be the spot that if you're going to go, that's the easiest place to go, unless you can find a center fielder who's going to provide you at least as good a defense as our current combination does, but better offense. And I just don't know what those candidates are.
Brian, do you want to follow up last word on that before you move to?
Yeah. I'm less worried about center field than others because of the high quality defense and, about league average combined offense that we're getting between McCormick and Siri. We'll see what we get with Jake Myers when he comes back. Also, the center field trade market isn't all that great. The top center fielder on the market right now is Ramon Laureano, who brings his own set of particular issues if he gets traded to the Astros. So
I have a question.
Can we get him from 3 years ago? No.
Statistically, from your eye, Brian, what do you see when you watch Jose Siri play the field? Because what I see is a guy who is just waiting to drop one of those stupid balls when he's doing flips and slides and trying to do basket catches behind his back, and it drives me crazy.
Yes, I understand that. Part of why he does that is because he gets a better jump than just about any other center fielder in baseball, and he is therefore able to get there. He's able to get there and then hot dog it when he gets there. I would prefer him not to. do
Yeah,
that. But hey,
if you told me the next ball he catches, he's going to do the sprinkler, I would absolutely believe you, because that's just the evolution.
Can I be the one to do the
Little
quote?
shopping cart.
Can I be the one to do the quote? Great catch, Willie. Don't ever fucking do it again. All right, last player, and this is last because honestly, it's in a position of strength for the Astros. But we have been talking about what this rotation thing is going to look like when LMJ gets back, if he does, and when Odorizzi gets back. To me, the weak link in the rotation is Urquidy, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. Even in games where he's not giving up runs, he's still getting the ball hit hard against him. He's still getting hit often. And I don't know that if he translates to the bullpen or not, but it does seem like if you were to roll out your best starting five, he would not be one of them. And I'll start with Brian on this one.
yeah, he's not walking guys because he never does that. He's striking out a decent number for Urquidy, but he's given up 12 hits per 9 innings. And that's the real sort of thing that, which by the way, is hard to do with the best defensive team in baseball behind you. I mean, usually, hit it, you got 8 guys behind you to help you. Well, they're not, which is they're not capable. We just described that as because. So again, so Jose Urquidy, I think right now is clearly the 5th best starter. He's someone who's struggling and giving up harder contact. But he's shown before he's capable of pitching better than this. And at the moment, I think he's the best option for the 5th starter's job, because the alternative at this moment is Hunter Brown, who is promising at Sugarland, should come up sometime this season, but still has control issues to work out.
But let me clarify. I'm not talking about moving Urquidy out of the rotation now. Yeah. I'm talking about why would you move Javier back to the bullpen when LMJ is back? Or why would you move Javier back to the bullpen when Odorizzi is back? Because I think Javier is a much more valuable starter than Urquidy.
So I don't think McCullers still seems a month or 2 away from getting back, and Odorizzi seems closer, but hasn't gone on a rehab assignment yet. So, I'm not sure there. So I think it's kind of, we sort of jump off that bridge when we get there.
Andy's Brian tell me to punt on this till July.
A little bit. That is the team option, because they're not going to bring up Hunter Brown to take a spot unless I haven't looked at the schedule for July. But if there's a 3-week stretch where we don't have a day off again, maybe Brown gets a call up for one start. Urquidy is, and I think I've said this before, I know we've said it on the show, he's kind of at the maximum end of his talent. His problem is he doesn't have a big out pitch. The good things about Urquidy, I guess, start there. He works fast, so it's fun to watch him pitch from that perspective. You don't have to wait, like Fromber will, I think, say the alphabet a couple times in some language before he throws the ball sometimes.
Urquidy pitch clocks are not going to be his friend.
Yeah, and Urquidy doesn't walk guys. He throws strikes. And unfortunately, because he doesn't fool anybody right now, he's getting hit around a lot. And so of the options, he's a 5th starter. And I think he'd be a valuable starter just about any rotation in baseball. Maybe not the Dodgers or the Yankees right now, but there are a number of teams who could use a guy like Jose Urquidy that would improve their rotations. The problem with the Astros, the problem for Urquidy, is that Lance McCullers Jr. and Jake Odorizzi are both better than Urquidy when they're all at their best. And so if you've got a position of strength and you've got somebody you can move potentially, because he is a guy that I see you could get something for. Maybe it's not going to be a top line starter, but maybe it is some piece that we need. Ledman is down to hurt himself at some point this year, because he does every year. Urquidy's got value to the Astros beyond just what he can do in the rotation.
Okay.
He's on the numbers guy. I'll put some numbers on this here.
Please.
His BABIP this season is 353. Average is like 290, so that's bad. And it was 239 last season. But so that indicates he should do better. The but to that is last year, 36% hard hit rate. This year, 47% hard hit rate. So we're not just imagining all those hard hits against Urquidy.
Well, I would guess that if there is a pitcher on our staff currently that has a tell, it's probably him, because he doesn't have a big pitch selection to begin with.
Right.
But batters don't just start guessing better in mass. So there's probably something going on with his delivery. I'm also hoping the fact that we're going to start evening out this series, this home and road series, because we played 14 more games, 2 weeks more on the road.
Yeah, we've almost played half our road games in the first third of the season.
Yep. A little bit of that goes a long way with pitchers getting more comfortable as well. So I'm hoping that starts balancing out some of our issues.
Last bright spot, we're going to start with Andy again. I'm sorry, Brian again on this one because of it's a numbers thing, but this guy has given up exactly as many runs this season as I have. Seth Martinez, I think, has actually saved this rotation a couple of times coming into games that were out of hand one way or the other and completely shutting it down and requiring no other need for bullpen help. I mean, is this guy going to stick? And what has shocked you or surprised you about him so far?
I mean, this is a guy they picked up in the minor league Rule 5 draft, which is basically just, so you can get a better place to play.
The scrappy
to be a major league reliever. So he's been a big surprise. This is both a scouting and development success by the Astros in the James Click era entirely. And, seems to be he's striking guys out at a normal rate and not walking guys. So, I don't think he's our future closer, but he's been a very nice contributor, and I'm happy to see what he's done. And of course, I'm always happy for any sort of career minor leaguer who's able to come up and get enough service time to get into the pension system, which he's about to do. So congratulations, Seth.
And Andy, you want any thoughts on Mr. Martinez before we get out of here?
Well, Brian's wrong because James Click doesn't do anything right according to Twitter. They're the worst. James Click
signing Jordan.
Just riding Jeff coattails. He has been his entire career. What a bum. Let's DFA him too.
Can we send him to the KBO with @Hawk Daddy on Twitter?
We just send a whole bus. We'll have 3 players left.
It'd be great. Well, that does. You know what? We have 3 players, and we're doing a great job, I think. That does wrap up this episode. We'll be back next week, and it'll be fun, guys, because I'll be coming to you from, I think, Mackinac Island, Michigan, or Traverse City, Michigan. I don't remember where. So here's hoping that hotel internet does what we're supposed to do. But big series tonight, regular schedules of days off to come. It looks like the Astros have survived the gauntlet and should move forward. So until next week, go Stros.
I am excited for island hopping. Go Astros. Go Stros.
Oh, pray for Anaheim. Go Stros.
Go Astros is a presentation from Twitchy Dolphin Media and part of the Let's Get To Baseball Network.